Welcome to another episode of Out from the Cube. This is our Thursday guest episode. We've gone a few weeks without a guest. I've been on the road in Colorado with a client, and then last week was at a conference and wasn't able to really nail anything down. For those that are listening, we're actually doing this a little bit different. We have a new format that we're trying out. This is the first time we've done it. We hope it goes well, and we hope that you get a lot of value out of it. We do have the podcast that you're listening to, but we are also recording this with video. So a kind of a video podcast, or a vlog, I guess is maybe what they're talking about. So we're also posting this to a YouTube channel, Out from the Cube on YouTube. So you can watch the entirety of this interview with Michael Henson that I have on. And you can watch and see what I look like finally, I guess, on YouTube, because we're on episode 30 or 31 right now. And then we're also going to splice this video up and do some things with it on LinkedIn. And I'm going to tell you, as we get going, I guess let me start this because people can see you if they are watching this, in fact, on YouTube. Michael, welcome to the show. I'm going to ask for you to introduce yourself here in a second, but welcome to the show to begin with. I appreciate your time because I do know you're busy and have a number of things going on. So I really appreciate you making time for us and actually moving it back 30 or 40 minutes based on my schedule this morning. So I appreciate it. Welcome to the show. Thanks
very much. I'm happy to be a part of this. I'm glad that you invited me, and I'm excited to get to chat a little bit.
Yeah. So let me explain why we're recording this with a video. I thought about the video for a while. So those that do listen to the podcast know that I listen to Gary Vaynerchuk, and I listen to Tim Ferriss and Lewis Howes, some of these people that I really admire and look up to, mostly kind of being Gary V. And Gary V kind of talks about putting this content out and creating content and providing value to people and doing these great things. And I got the bug with that and took the leap out and did some things with audio, and we're up to, like I mentioned earlier, about 30 or so episodes, and that has been great. But I've always looked at this video and creating video content and being really nervous about that. Now you are really putting yourself out there, and I've been, just to be totally transparent and honest about it, it scared me because I didn't want to have the criticism and all that sort of stuff. But I set that up to say I stumbled across some of your videos on LinkedIn and was really inspired by them. And it's not hyperbole or trying to make you feel great or anything like that. Your videos are really good, really, just really inspired me, really touched me, and it got me going a little bit. And that's when I reached out to you. But then I was like, you know what, I need to be doing that. I just need to put myself out there a little bit, create what I'm doing, and put some videos out there. And if there's ridicule to that, or if there's laughter about that on my expense, I'm going to be comfortable with it. I'm fine with it. So I say that we are here recording a video 100% because of the videos you have put out and how they inspired me. So one, I want to just be very upfront and thank you for that, and kind of giving me the nudge even when you don't know me. So thank you for that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So we met for coffee a week or so ago. And again, it really inspired kind of by your message and story, and how we kind of intersected was really based around kind of the idea of this whole podcast and the name of this podcast is called Out from the Cube, with this mindset of being kind of checking, clocking in 8 o'clock, clocking out at 5, taking an hour lunch, living for Fridays and not really being engaged Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and just wanting more out of life and wanting more out of our careers and wanting more out of relationships and being more connected with our businesses and clients and products and just trying to get more out of life. But when I started watching your videos, I thought there was like some good connectedness in both of our messages. And that's really why I reached out to you. But kind of if I guess we can circle back. Let's start to your, what are you doing now? And let's start with kind of your background on how you've got to where you are now, because what you're doing right now is fascinating, and how you've gotten there is really fascinating. So I guess start with where you're at now. Like, what are you doing, and how do you kind of hang your hat professionally right now?
Yeah, so right now it's kind of a hodgepodge of a few different things. I've been creative pretty much my entire life, and without going all the way into the backstory at this point, what that means is I've done a lot of writing. I've done photography, like retail in terms of families and weddings, for about 5 years now, and I've also done commercial photography for about 5 years now. I've been doing dabbling in video for 2, 3, 4 years, something like that. And so where I'm at right now professionally is I'm a full-time entrepreneur, and the work that I'm doing where I make my money is a combination of writing, photography, commercial video production, and then I am now moving into a lot of or more brand strategy and storytelling. And ultimately, that's where I want to end up. That's what I'm moving myself into, um, because it's a beautiful combination of everything that I already enjoy doing. I get to do in one complete package through
Mhm.
that brand storytelling offering, so to speak.
Yeah. So, and yeah, I'm looking at your LinkedIn profile and knowing you a little bit and researching and watching some of your videos. You do your title that you have on LinkedIn is Storytelling and Creative Mastermind. So, for those that don't know, and I'm not 100% crystal clear on this either. Tell me what do you mean by storytelling? What is that?
So storytelling is basically telling the story of anything that you come in contact with. Um, I think there's a tendency for us, society or just people in general, to only recognize certain stories, only recognize stories in certain contexts, and kind of gloss over the fact that there are stories contained in everything that we're engaged in. And so when I say storyteller, I'm talking about how, someone like a financial consultant, for instance. I'm actually working with a couple right now, a couple different financial consultants and in the financial tech industry. How can they tell their story in a way that's effective? Because that's an industry where storytelling isn't very readily recognized, because it's all about technology and processes and kind of a traditional approach to business.
Hmm.
And as a storyteller, I'm able to go in and see, okay, this is, there's a story here. There's a way to frame your experiences in a manner that causes people to connect, that, you're not framing it that way right now. So
Hmm.
you're framing it in terms of very cut and dried business approach, business models. We did this and we did this and we did this and we did this. And there's a way to put that narrative together in a way that anybody that's not even connected with the industry can understand it, and it makes sense, and they're on board with what you're trying to do. So it's finding those stories and opening people's eyes to the stories that already exist in their life and in their business, and just kind of bringing those to light and helping them frame them in a way that gets the results they're looking for, whether it's raising awareness that they exist, whether it's communicating a message to new clients, whether it's communicating messages to existing clients. Um, it's just, opening their mind to a different way of doing things that's going to more readily connect than a lot of facts or a lot of data and statistics.
And what I have found in watching your videos that you're producing on LinkedIn is, and you're creating some great stories. You just, your personal story, your personal brand, your personal inspiration to others via LinkedIn is has really been inspiring. And I kind of want to circle back because we talked about this when we had coffee a week or so ago. That that's all new to you, isn't it? Like this whole, the videos that you're putting out and the content that you're creating and how you the storytelling you have about your own personal brand is new to you, right? This is not something that you did a year ago. Is that fair to say? Like, what is it now? It's September of 2017, right? A year ago.
Right.
You were not doing any of this, right?
In terms of the storytelling, not only in my writing,
Hmm.
So it was only occurring in my writing, and that was very, very sporadic. So it wasn't something that was an ongoing thing. No, it is new. And the more I'm digging into it, the more I'm doing it, the more opportunity that I'm seeing, and the more I realize that there's a lot of value there that can help.
Yeah. So, but tell me a little bit more about these videos that you started and kind of this message, because to kind of piggyback on the title of the podcast, Out from the Cube, and just kind of wanting more, trying to connect more, believing in yourself more, putting yourself out on a limb.
Mm-hmm.
You had that epiphany, right? You had that, a year or 2 years or however long ago it was, that you felt like you wanted more, correct? Like, you were
Yeah,
teaching, is that right? You were a teacher at a high school or a private high school here in the St. Louis area, right?
correct.
Okay,
Correct.
and then what led to this transformation in what you're doing professionally?
So even before I was teaching, I had the drive to, escape the cube, so to speak.
Hmm.
I worked at a, a large private company in St. Louis in a cubicle, staring at a computer screen for about 6 years.
Wow.
And that entire time, I wanted to get out of there. And that's what kind of led me to teaching at the school, the private high school that I taught at for the past 2 years, thinking that that was the answer and that would get me what I wanted, because then I'd have my summers off and I'd be able to engage creatively in all of these things that I've already mentioned I enjoy doing:
Hmm.
videography, photography, writing. Um, and as I taught, I recognized that even that level of additional freedom wasn't enough. Like, I still felt constrained, and I still wanted to escape it. So
Hmm.
um, that's what that drive to get out and to do more, to do something differently, kind of live life um, on my terms. I hate to say that because it kind of sounds a little selfish. And maybe it is selfish, but to live life outside the cube where I'm able to fully engage with what drives me as a person,
Hmm.
was huge. Um, and that all kind of came to a head this spring, even last September and November, when I really kind of got it in my head. Okay, then it was writing. I'm gonna write. I know blogging is still a thing. I know people are out there changing their lives through the power of their writing, and I'm just gonna do it until it breaks. I'm gonna commit myself to it and make something happen, essentially.
Hmm.
Um, and it was this spring, early this year, that video entered the picture. Once I got on LinkedIn and started engaging on LinkedIn, is when doing video really became something that was an option for me to get into.
Hmm.
And it was this spring, after my time on LinkedIn and after really going for it, that I finally felt that the opportunity for me to take that leap was
Right.
finally there.
And was that a hard leap for you? To all of a sudden, you get into some pretty personal things and some personal um, challenges and directions that you want to take, or even the challenges that you put on other people. Um,
Mhm.
was that a difficult jump for you to because I think when we met and we talked, you were surprised by the outreach that the people commenting and the people kind of reciprocating the inspiration back to you, right? um, that surprised you, didn't it?
It did. Yeah, it was a very hard leap. It was a hard decision to come to. And
Hmm.
I didn't expect that it would be, because like I said, it was something that I'd wanted to do for so long.
Right.
And so when the time finally came, I had to come face to face with a lot of fear that was disguising itself as really, really reasonable, practical excuses. So I had to overcome that. And um, it was just a difficult, weird time. There was a lot of excitement for making that change,
Hmm.
and that excitement was met with equal parts of just terror. Like, what am I
Right.
getting myself into? What am I doing? And the community on LinkedIn that I connected with made a huge difference for me. Just the support, and gave me the confidence and the voice outside my family, because you know,
Sure.
doing photography, like I hear this creatively all the time with other creatives, like your family, they're going to love whatever you do. Right? They're going to support you most of the time. I get that there are those that don't, but most of the time, excuse me, I'm fighting this cold and it's killing me.
Ah,
Um, but family's going to support you. They're going to be like, yeah, those photos are great, or that story is great, or that writing is amazing. But hearing those same words and that same level of support from complete strangers, literally on the other side of the world,
right.
it's been life changing for sure.
Oh, good. You said you didn't say this word, but there's typically a kind of a theme to my week. I do a lot of reading, listen to a lot of podcasts, try to talk to as many people as I can and meet and things of that nature. And the theme kind of for this week, and I recorded and released a podcast on Tuesday of this week, and the idea was kind of repetition. And it was a simple word. It ended up being at the top of my notes for the week. I highlighted it, underlined it, put stars next to it, and it's a simple word. But what I heard you say earlier when you were talking about blogging was just that you were going to wear it out, that you were going to do it until it breaks, that you were going to, in putting my own words into what you said, you were going to rep that out. Like you were going to, the first rep's probably not that great. But maybe 1,000 reps down the road, it's going to be a lot better. And the improvement will be a lot more. And I see all those as kind of reps or at bats, towards your success or towards everybody's success. Like most people aren't willing to put in that grind to what you're doing, or my hope would be as to what I'm doing. Like I'm 30 or so episodes in. I feel good about my podcast. It's fun. I get to meet people like you. I get to have coffee with the lady I had coffee with this morning simply because of the podcast. But it's the repetition when there's no needle moving. There's no, I can't look at the numbers or the metrics and say, man, like today it happened, right? It could be 6 months, right? And I've got to be able to withstand that. That's got to be, so you've done the reps, you've done the grind, you're paying your dues, and that's hard to do. Like it's hard to keep, like how do you keep that? How do you keep grinding it? Where's the inspiration for you to do it every day, even when the needle's not moving?
It's a great question. And it's interesting, because just as you're talking about it, like it's interesting because I see this in some areas of my life. I have the grit and determination to stick it out. In other areas, I still struggle. Specifically like fitness and weight loss has always been a struggle for me. Like, I mean, I was an athlete in high school; it was fine. But since then, like, I haven't landed on what it is that drives me to be successful in that.
Mm-hmm.
But I found it for this. It's just an interesting.
That's interesting. And I say that because I'm not sure that you're not that different than anybody else. You know what I mean? Like, I think we all sit back and are driven at certain things that wake us up every day, that give us juice, that give us purpose, right? A big word for me this week is also purpose. But we have this purpose of what we're supposed to be doing. It wakes us, like my eyes opened up at 3:07, I believe, this morning. And I just randomly woke up, but then my mind starts going about the things I'm truly passionate about. I started thinking about this interview, my coffee that I was having with this lady this morning, and I got really juiced up because I feel like that's driving me. But then I start thinking about the gym, my health, running, or writing. If I were like, I'm not a writer, and I'm like, man, that stuff's so easy to pass off and not do and not be passionate about or have a purpose for or how it serves me. And I can easily put that at 10th on the list of priorities. Not to hijack your thoughts, but I don't think you're that. And then we beat ourselves up about that, right? We beat ourselves up about item number 10. That is a priority, but it's just not that priority.
Yeah, it's interesting because exactly what you were talking about, that grit and determination that I'm just going to fight through it, even when the needle's not moving. Like I recognize that, when it comes to creating content and building a business or building a, a movement or a calling, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But in other areas, I know the same principles apply. I just haven't applied them. And that's really interesting because I think you're right. I don't think I'm unique in that. I think everybody has areas that they can apply these principles for topic A, but for topic B, even though the same principles would make them successful in both, they struggle to apply them there. That's an interesting observation.
Tell me some things that you've learned. So you just said there's things that you do relative to your business and entrepreneurship and the things that you feel you have a purpose for that would correlate to priority number 2, but you just don't implement. What are some of those things? What have you learned that you have in you and that is important to you in driving where you're at and what you're trying to do professionally?
Yeah, it's funny. Like one of the things as I get older, I'm coming to realize is that cliches are cliches because they're true, right? And so the very same principles, like for my business, I'm at home by myself, or I can be out at the coffee shop by myself. I've got no one looking over my shoulder, making sure that I'm getting anything accomplished. And so I have to hold myself accountable. And I do that, through routines, through, okay, today I've got to get this, and this done. And then just a constant desire to push to expand or grow or innovate in what I'm working on, right? So for me, business-wise, that's how I feel like if I just put in the time and I do these things and I work smart and I work hard and I'm patient and I'm consistent, then eventually everything's going to pay off.
Right.
But if I apply that to, like my fitness or my weight loss journey, if I'm patient, if I'm consistent, if I make sure that I'm getting this, and this done every day, I guarantee you, if I could get that on lock for my fitness weight loss, that's an easy example for me because it's really obvious. It's the first thing people see when they look at me. Then like I wouldn't have an issue, right? So if I worked out every day, if I made sure that my caloric intake was right, and I looked for ways to stay active and innovate in activity, I wouldn't have any issues with weight loss or fitness because it would be a natural byproduct of my lifestyle. Same with my business. That's how I approach it. If I'm innovative, if I'm consistent, and if I work hard, then eventually, the things that I'm looking to accomplish are going to occur.
But something happened, and I'm going to get these time frames wrong. So, but stay to the point. A year or so ago, or a year and a half or so ago, you were sitting in a cubicle for 6 years and looking at a computer screen, like you said, and something triggered, something happened. There was something that something broke in you, and you said, enough. I deserve more, can have more. The phrase I use a fair amount is be, do, have. I can be more, do more, and have more. And something drove you to that. There was, Tony Robbins talks a lot about pain and pleasure. Like everything that we do, every action is driven by pain and pleasure. Like we either have the pain of something and the pleasure, and we drive towards the pleasure. So the pain of you 6 years in a cubicle looking at became too much. And then you pursued the pleasure of what you wanted, right? So what was that? What happened a year and a half ago that was kind of that point where you said 6 years is enough, right? Because keep in mind, this is a business, quote unquote, business podcast where people that are in leadership podcasts where we have CEOs and executives and people that are selling cars and selling shoes. And we have college coaches listening to this and people in San Francisco listening to this. So, but what was that breaking point where you said, man, I can be more, I can do more, and I can have more? Something happened.
Yeah. And to put it simply, I think that that moment, or a summation of events that led up to a moment, was literally just coming to the conclusion that I'm not going to allow myself to be defined by my past or by expectations of others,
Hmm.
to put it simply. When I finally made the decision that, like, all of those descriptors that people have used to describe me, like quirky, like my wife likes to say I'm a dork. I've always been creative, but I felt like I couldn't express creatively, um, because of, I don't know, like probably just mental constructs, or mental uh, approaches that kept me from expressing myself freely.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I finally got to the point where I feel like I had stifled that so long, I was just done. Like I had stifled that to fit into a corporate culture. I stifled that at the school I was teaching at to fit into a staff culture. Even within my friends' circles, the circle of friends that I'm in, to an extent, I stifle my personality, who I am, because I feel like I have expectations that I need to meet. And finally, what happened was I just got to the point where I'm done. Like I'm done doing this. I'm going to accept myself, and that's why a big theme in my videos is self acceptance, and just like, you're who you are. Your personality is what it is. Sure, you can grow and you can change, but ultimately, that growth and that change isn't going to happen until you accept who you are and you're okay with it. And once that happened, that's when that grit and that drive, like, this is who I am. This is what I want to do. I want to be a writer. I want to be a creative, and I'm willing to put in and grind at it for as long as it takes. And if it
Mm-hmm.
never happens, I'm more fulfilled grinding, out of who I truly am, than I am grinding for someone else's expectations.
Man. Yeah. So, I mean, we could end the podcast. I think that's big time, Michael. And that's what, and I've heard that message, that authenticity and the transparent, like that's what drew me to your message. Um, you know, and I do think a lot of life, and I'm circling back around to kind of this Tony Robbins idea of pain and pleasure, that's when decisions get made. And I'm going to piggyback on this as well, because this podcast has been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it. And to use the selfish word you used earlier, it has very selfish. It started very selfishly. It started because I wanted to hold myself accountable to learning and improvement and trying to provide value to people, and trying to be prepared for this. And I wanted to do it to meet people like you and to learn from people like you to better my life. Very selfish, right? And it continues to kind of be selfish in those regards. Like the coffee I had this morning was amazing, but it was like I just wanted to learn from this lady as much as possible. So what happened with the podcast was, and I use a different phrase, but essentially means the same thing, is I became very self-aware of who I was and who I wanted to be. And this happened like December, January of this past year. And that's when I think the people that listen to this, and we have had people listen to this, and I say this almost every week, but we talk about, there's people in, I've talked to people in Hawaii and North Carolina and Atlanta and Dallas and San Francisco and Portland, Oregon, that are still talking about, man, I'm in my cube. I'm in my cube. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm clocking in, I'm clocking out. I'm not fulfilled. I can do more. I can be more. I can have more. But it really starts with what you just said. It's that line in the sand where you're sitting there saying, I know who I am. I'm very self-aware, and I'm willing to now kind of take steps to fulfill that. And I mean, I understand that that's what drove you, and that you just what happened after you made that. I can speak for myself on what it's kind of done for me this year. It's been an amazing year.
Mm-hmm.
But once you made that decision, like, enough. I know who I am. I know what I want to do. I know what my purpose is. I'm very self-aware of what I want and who I am. What did that do for you? What did that do for you in two regards? What did that do for you professionally? What doors did it open? What did you start doing career-wise? But more so, what did that do for you mentally? And how did that mental transformation impact what you were doing physically or professionally?
Yeah. So professionally, um, my entire work life, I've I've been able to be successful to an extent. I've been able to any job that I've been given, I'm able to do and do it well and innovate. And kind of when I was in the cubicle, a lot of my creativity was spent on like innovation or process improvement. How can we do this or that better?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where my creative outlet was. But it's hard to look back and examine, the causes behind why I was never able to, achieve the career growth that I wanted to achieve or whatever. And I think ultimately the reason I never did is because it was half-hearted. Even when I was trying really, really hard, it wasn't what I was passionate about. It wasn't what I really believed in. And I think that came through. I was able to get the job done. I was able to hold a job. I was able to innovate and help out and provide value to the companies I worked for. But I think that I wasn't fully engaged, to the point where I was passionate about it that I was gonna be a corporate success, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, I'm with you.
Since I made the realization, came to the realization that I've got to believe in myself and accept myself for who I am. It started off writing. It was November of last year, and I was writing for a website called Medium, and it's like a online newspaper publications. And I started writing, and within less than a month, I was a top writer in four different categories on Medium, and I was writing for 2 publications in less than a month. So like I don't say that to
Wow.
pat myself on the back. I say that to show like I've got 8 or 10 years of corporate experience where nothing blew up for me. Nothing really
Right,
took.
right.
I
Gotcha.
never had anything that I did validate the value that I was providing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything was just, okay, you got that done. It was just literally punching a clock. There was no validation of what you're doing is valuable. Less than a month into my acceptance of myself for who I was and what I wanted to be, I had that validation of being accepted to write for two of the biggest publications on that website. Combined over 250,000 readers
Wow.
to the 2 publications, and I was a top writer in 4 categories.
Not to cut you off, but what I think that's great. I think that's amazing. Like I'm super juiced for you on that. But what were you writing about? What were the topics of these articles? Was it wide ranging? Was it kind of isolated? What was clearly, if you are writing and you make that jump and you have that impact in a month, you are writing about something you are truly passionate about, into, knowledgeable about, have an opinion about, all that sort of stuff. So what was kind of the subject matter for that month of writing?
Creativity, and I was writing to, in my mind, I was writing to creatives that have been stifling their creativity. So similar to your message out from the cube, it
Mm-hmm.
was a message of embrace your creativity, how to embrace your creativity, um, and how to live in it. Because once you start to live in it, you're going to be more fulfilled. You're going to be happier. Your life is going to be enriched by it. And so it was about that. It was talking about overcoming fears, learning to embrace vulnerability. A lot of what I've talked about in my videos now, the messages, from my writing thread through. So there's a lot of crossover in that. Just, trying to help people come to the realization that I came to. Accept yourself. If you're creative, accept those creative impulses and embrace them and stop trying to stifle them to look a certain way or act a
Mm-hmm.
certain way. Embrace it and live it, because that's where you're really going to enjoy life. And even if you're still stuck in a cube, if you embrace what you're called to do, man, like you can do it indefinitely.
Right.
Even if you're never out of that cube, I still feel like people can get to a point where their life is not defined by that anymore. Maybe you have to do it to pay bills, but you're no longer defined by, I'm a reporting analyst. No, I'm a writer. I'm an artist. I'm a creative.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you're defined by. That life is so much more fulfilling.
Right. And I do understand, we've talked about the kind of the name of the podcast, Getting Out of the Cube, but it's also the kind of this cube in my mind, of just being locked in here, or, to quote Pink Floyd, to be another brick in the wall, where you're just kind of where there's just more to it that we can break out. And even if, I'm a consultant, the podcast is a certain part of what we do. But I'm also a consultant in that I will be in a cubicle, for as long as I'm a consultant. That's part of the gig, but it's kind of this mindset of getting out of the cubicle, of just connecting and being, what did you, when you made that change, now all of a sudden I find your story just really, and when we're done here, I will make sure that people know how to track you down on LinkedIn and Twitter and what other platforms you're a part of. Because I would encourage everybody listening to reach out to Michael and connect with him. But what were the big business as you go out? How old's your daughter? I know you have a daughter, right?
Mm-hmm.
How old is she?
She's 9.
She's 9. So wife and kid, and now we're making a career shift. We're doing something different. So not only the challenges that may be there, but what were the other things that, as you go, hey, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, I'm going to do this. This is my purpose. And what were some of the pitfalls that happened, in the past year or so as you kind of went out by yourself to make a living?
Well, I'm probably still making my way towards pitfalls, I would imagine,
Mm-hmm.
because I taught up until the spring. So May was really my last month of steady, income, so to speak. And so the pitfalls that I've run into and the things I've had to overcome are really just learning to be an entrepreneur, so to speak. I've done, it's been fascinating to me. I've been doing it in my mind for a long time, but actually doing it in real life is different. And so what I'm working through in terms of building a business is learning how to connect with the people that need what I've got to offer, and providing value and balancing the providing of value, because I tend to err on the side of just give it away. I tend to be like, I'm happy to help. I'll do it. And I have clients that I'm working with that are paying me extra because they feel like I'm not valuing myself enough. So I'd say the largest pitfall, now that I articulated it that way, is valuing myself. Because part of it is it's so fun. This is what I'm meant to be doing. It doesn't feel like work. And so it feels like,
should I be making this much money doing this? Right.
Not that I'm blowing and going or anything, but literally it's overcoming that mentality.
Mm-hmm.
And then just being okay, kind of getting outside my box and actively going out and looking for opportunities. I'm not a big salesperson. And so a lot of my pitfalls really come in that mental space. I've got to be okay getting outside myself. What I do is valuable, recognizing that, and offering it to people. So I think pitfalls are all right here for me.
And I think not just for you. I think a lot of the pitfalls that we have are in our mind and how we think, right? I'm trying to think of the exact phrase, and I keep quoting Tony Robbins, but it's the negative self-doubt and it's the negative talk that we always put into our mind, right? And my epiphany on some of this stuff this year was, and sorry to keep quoting Gary Vee and Tony Robbins, but there's only, Gary Vee's main quote is, there's only one voice in my head, and that is mine. I take the opinions of others and I don't take people's judgment of me. And those are kind of my life-changing thoughts for the week, or not, for the year, that have been life-changing for me, is I respect everybody's opinion and try to take that as really good feedback on how I can get better as a father, as a coach, as an employee, as whatever, right? And whatever role I have in my life. But people's judgment of me is different. And I don't take that in. And there's only one voice in my head, and that is my own, and that I'm doing the best I can with what I have and where I happen to be. But something has to, if for somebody just starting out and it's May and you stop teaching, and now June, July, August, September are rolling around, and now we're having to pivot a little bit, or actually quite a bit, to a new way of living. There has to be these ups and downs, right? Where, like, what am I doing? How am I doing this? This isn't going to work, or, all this negative self-doubt that you can't let creep into your mind. I guess 2 questions. One, where do you get your juice from? What keeps those voices out of your head, so you can keep grinding and keep grinding? And then I guess along those same lines, like how do you stop those thoughts? Like, so I guess the first part, like what juices you up? What keeps you on that train to know that this is going to turn out exactly how you want it to?
Honestly, because other people have done it. That was one of the realizations I came to back in November, when I really started writing a lot, and it hit me, and I gave myself permission to move forward into that. And I've been following a lot of the same guys you referenced, Gary Vee, Tony Robbins. There are a couple bloggers that I follow that have, within the past 5 years or so, have started writing and been able to move into a full-time, like, this is what they do now. And just, I kind of gave myself permission to see myself in that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so what keeps me going is the fact that I firmly believe, as of November of last year, that if I put in my time and I keep working hard and I keep making incremental improvements and growing as a person and as a business owner, that I'm going to get there. It's really a question of, do I have the patience and the grit to stick it out, right? You mentioned Gary Vee, and one of his mantras, I guess, is like, and I'm not going to get the wording right, but it's long-term patience, right? So patience in the long term, and then daily hustle. And
Daily hustle, right.
I feel like there's a lot of people that just get out there and they just hustle, and then they're super impatient in the long term, and so they burn themselves out, and their expectations are unrealistic. And so for me, like, I'm recognizing, okay, like Gary did it, Tony did it, like Jeff Goins is a writer, he did it. John Acuff, he's a writer, he did it. And it's just a matter of, if I continue every single day to do what I mentioned earlier, like, I've got tasks I have to get done, I've got innovation I need to try to do, I need to be thinking forward, but I also need to be thinking like macro and micro, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I keep doing that and I stick it out long enough, then it's going to happen,
right.
And so a lot of that day-to-day hustle is, okay, I need a job that's going to pay me now, and so it's hustle for that. And even my hustling has changed, because I'm learning it's a lot more about making connections with people, because again, I'm not a sales guy. I'm not, I've got friends that can go out, and it's just like they create money from nothing, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like they're super successful like that. And that's never been my gift, and for me, it's more like I make connections with as many people as I can. And I know, my dad drilled this quote, the Zig Ziglar quote, into my head from the time I was a kid. If you help enough other people get what they want, then you'll get what you want. And so for me, it's just, that hustle is like, I want to connect with people, I want to help people, and then when the time comes, then that's going to be reciprocated.
Yeah. So I mean, I admire everything you're doing, because I do. I'm a very forward thinking person in terms of like outcomes, like 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, all that. And I can already see, I think you mentioned you're 35 or something like that when we had coffee. And I know what 45 looks like for you. Let me ask you this. And I want to honor your time, as I like to say. And I want to make sure that we wrap up right around 11:30 our time. But, you inspired me. I'm 45. I'm not saying I've seen everything or done everything, anything along those lines. I'm just kind of grinding every day just to figure out kind of a thing that I didn't learn this today, just got reinforced today, was this 1% mindset. A friend of mine that I had on the podcast a couple months ago was on another podcast where it was kind of this 1% improvement. So I saw that this morning and I was like, man, I just got to get a little bit better. So, being with you and being inspired by you with your videos and really kind of moved me and made me a better person. I didn't really respond to any of your videos. I didn't comment or anything of that nature. But my question is, you have inspired, you have touched people, you have inspired people, you have got people moving, and I'm interested on some of that feedback. What have you received, and what has been flattering to you? And please pat yourself on the back. Like, you are touching people, moving people, and letting people make changes. Because you're documenting your change. You are documenting your change and your success. And I know what 45 is going to look like for you. And you're at 35. And I'm interested in how you've impacted people and some of the feedback you've received through whatever channels that you're posting things on. And you can please pat yourself on the back. Say, you know what, George, I'm crushing it, man. I am changing the world with my videos. And I want you, I'm interested in how you've moved people.
Yeah. I get pretty much every time I post, I do get messages and video, or not videos. I do get messages from people talking about how what I'm posting, what I'm talking about has inspired them. And it's a lot of like, man, that's exactly what I needed to hear today. This kind of stuff. Or thanks for the reminder. It feels like a lot of what I talk about isn't really new material for most people, especially if you've been trying to grow for any length of time as a person, like personal development. Like, what I'm talking about isn't new. And a lot of the lessons I'm learning are lessons like I learned them intellectually 5-10 years ago, and I just never implemented them until now.
Right.
And so a lot of what I get, the feedback is, that's exactly what I needed to hear today, or that's the kind of reminder that I needed today to go out and do this or do that. And they come from the most random of places. Like, I've got friends that I see every single week that I don't even recognize or realize are paying any attention to what I've got going on. And I'll pass him and he's like, hey man, that video you did the other day, like, I was sitting on the couch, I didn't want to do anything, and just got me fired up, and I went out and got done 5 things that I needed to get done today.
Yeah.
And it's like, honestly, it's still so new, and I've gone so long in that cubicle mindset of like, all the value I have to provide is what my manager asked of me. My value is wrapped up in like this end of month report, and that's all the value I have to offer the world. Like, I lived my life so long like that. And so now hearing that, like, what I have to offer made someone stay better or help them accomplish something that they would have otherwise not accomplished. Or like people getting on and doing videos. Like, the videos on LinkedIn literally changed my life. It's literally given me the opportunity and the push I needed to make this leap into an entrepreneurial lifestyle, and getting the opportunity to hear from other people that they're doing the same thing is insanely humbling and exciting, because it's again, it's just, even if nothing else happens but they post one video, that's them recognizing that they have value enough to turn a camera on and share part of their story with the world. And if I can continue to help people recognize that they, like, you have more value than what your boss or your job or your history say that you do, like, man,
Right.
that's what it's all about. And I do get the feedback that that's happening, and that's wildly fulfilling. It's amazing.
Yeah. So let me circle back to a question. I'm not putting words in your mouth, and I'm not suggesting I know exactly how you feel with this, but I'm going to make this generalization for me. Again, sometimes it's very selfish because I want to improve and get better. I have some books here right next to me. I have a bookshelf, and I have some financial books and, a lot of leadership type books and coaching and team type books. The financial books say if you want to make money and you want to be successful financially, the first thing you need to do is give, right? And if you read books about teams or anything spiritual or things about that, or some of the successful people that I follow, and I think you may follow as well, the first thing they talk about is gratitude and kind of waking up with a grateful heart and things of that nature. And how that resonates with, I think, with what you just said to me is, I think the question I asked you earlier about how you don't let those pitfalls happen and how you don't get stuck in valleys with something new is you get your juice because you're giving to people. You're giving. So, spiritually, they say to give 10%, like right off the top, right? And that you're giving, and that you are, if you want to be successful financially, give first. That doesn't make any sense. I'm trying to save money. Why would I give money away, right? But it comes back to you.
Mm-hmm.
It comes back to you. It comes back to you. So it's this idea of service. And that what you just said really resonates with me, because I'm glad I asked the question about the feedback you receive, because I think that's where your juice comes from. And I can't get into your mind, and I'm making a generalization, but that idea that you get to post a video about something that is personal and transparent and important to you, and you get a comment from somebody in the other side of the world or in Hawaii or whatever it might be, like, hey, that impacted me.
Mm-hmm.
And that does something for you to continue to do it, to put yourself out there a little bit, because I'm kind of living that to a certain extent as well. And so I think that's where a lot of the juice might come from for you, because that isn't, you're not talking about photography or branding or storytelling.
Right.
I understand you are. I understand that's what you do for a living, but your impact is, you're trying to grow your impact more than that. And I think that is substantial, and it doesn't have to do with a camera.
Yeah.
You kind of follow it, like, and I know that's really patting you on the back, but I feel that, and I think it's deeper than what you're doing professionally. You know what I mean? I think it will come back to you. Again, if you haven't, and I'm going to give you a chance here to make sure we plug you, but I typically used to end my interviews with kind of a general question, and I've changed it I've changed this question maybe the past couple of guests that we've had on. But so the question is this. You and I are connected on LinkedIn. I've read your bio. I don't remember exactly what it says. I know your title. I have it written down here because it's an interesting title to me. Storyteller and Creative Mastermind. I like that. But your bio, if you were to think right now about what your bio says right now at 35 years old, now I want you to forward think to 45 years old. What does that LinkedIn bio say? What does your LinkedIn bio say in 10 years when you're 45 years old?
That's a great question. I would want it to say, I hope it says, man, like what you said, I hope it says something along the lines of, basically, I exist to help people recognize their value and embrace the purpose and the calling that they have in their lives. And whatever that looks like, like, you picked up on it. I have kind of two tracks going on. I've got my money making, like what I have to do to pay bills, and then I've got what I'm really, really, really passionate about and really, really want to see happen. And that's the helping people and the storytelling, like people stories, helping people uncover and tell their stories. A lot of what you're doing with your podcast is helping them make that mental switch out of the mental cube into, life outside that. And so 10 years from now, if that can be what I'm doing full time, that'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah. Well, again, I very much subscribe to you will be, and not just you, but everybody that does listen to this podcast. It takes, I was with that lady this morning, and it was, this podcast has been very impactful for me because I've had these incredible conversations that have been life-changing for me. And it has reaffirmed, to your point, I think it's a great point. Your point earlier is that we know these things. We've heard these things. I don't think you and I are saying these great things about life that have not been said many times over the past 100, 200. I just believe that, right? I'm taking notes on things and hearing from things from Gary Vee to coaches that I admire or podcasts or books I read or whatever it might be. And I'm just reaffirming it in my podcast. And I think that's kind of what you're saying, is that we're not coming up with this stuff. We're just kind of recycling it out and maybe giving a different spin on it, or how it resonates with you and how it resonates with me. But your videos really struck me, Michael, and I really appreciate your time. For those that are listening, we've been going for almost an hour. I don't have the timestamp. It's almost an hour, and I want to honor your time because I know you're busy. But we tried this as a video, so if you're listening to this, we actually have a video of it. It's really just me and Michael talking. I am in my partially finished basement. You can see the trusses. Are these called trusses of my basement that I need to finish with the walls? I talked to somebody this morning at my company about finding a better studio for this, and she was like, no, you just go for it. So you're in your kitchen, I'm in my basement, and maybe one day we'll have a studio, but my basement is absolutely fine for what we're doing. I do have, as we wrap up, I have three asks of the people that do listen to this. One, please share the podcast. Please subscribe to the podcast. If there's anything we can do to help you, please reach out to us. Would love to have a conversation. Michael, I want to make sure that everybody knows how to track you down, though. I know you're on LinkedIn. What's the best platform for people to track you down? Or feel free to give us, and I will have these in my show notes as well, so people know how to track you down. But what is the best way for people to reach out to you?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is the social media where I'm the most active. And that's just linkedin.com/in/Michael E. Henson. So that's where you can find most of my stuff. I do have a YouTube channel that I'm also working on putting all the videos from LinkedIn into that, but that's a very slow process. Otherwise, you can find my website, some of my writing, and then also sign up for updates. I'm working on a storytelling course right now that I hope to launch before the end of October. And that website, you can get updates and find out more about that, is michaelehenson.com.
Perfect. michaelehenson.com is the website. And again, in my show notes, you'll be able to have all those links that you can make sure to reach out to Michael. I encourage you, listen, I know people take notes. I have a buddy of mine that has show notes actually taped to his monitor at work, and I really appreciated that and thought it was great. So I know people are listening and are taking notes and taking some of these ideas away. So I'm going to say this. You should track Michael down and watch his videos on LinkedIn. Like, you need to track Michael down. You need to connect with him, and you need to go to his posts and watch his videos, because they will inspire you and they will have a message for you that you will need. So with that, Michael, hey, I appreciated your videos. I appreciate, us connecting and us having a conversation, and look forward to connecting with you and being connected with you. And I know how this ends up. You're like, you know what I mean? Like, I get it. I know how this is going to end up for you, because there's certain people that when you meet, and we've all heard this before, when you meet certain people and you walk away and say, that guy's got it, and you sit around and talk about what it is, I think you got it. You know what I mean? And I think it's going to be I think it's going to be a lot of fun watching that happen over the next number of years. So again, appreciate your time, Michael, and everybody listening, reach out to him, and everybody else have a great rest of the week.
Thanks so much.